Hi, today I'm going to talk about how to design and laser cut this Gwent board inspired by Witcher 3. Hi, welcome to another episode of Gray Lightning, my video blog about making things and playing games. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about making this Gwent board. Now, Gwent, G-W-E-N-T, is a very cool card game that was introduced in the video game Witcher 3. It's also now a standalone game, but it's actually also a real card game with real cards. I've designed this in Adobe Illustrator for the tarot size cards that you see here, but you could adjust it pretty easily for the standard size cards as well. I cut it on a laser cutter, and instead of hinging the two pieces together, I elected to embed powerful magnets in the corners of the two boards so that you can just stick them together during transport. And I'll talk about why I did that. I'll also talk about my finishing techniques, all of that in this episode. My design constraints were that, of course, the slots had to fit my tarot cards, but also one half of the board could not be larger than 24 by 18 inches, which was the size of my laser cutter bed. Each board would have 3 layers, a 1/8 inch plywood top with cutouts in it, a 1/4 inch middle where the engraving would be, and an 1/8 inch bottom. I always start my design projects by creating references, and this is the size of one of my tarot cards. And this cutout will hold that card with a little hole at the top for your finger to make it easy to get it out. I grabbed a screen capture of the digital Gwent board and I smashed it into the space I had available to build mine. And I can get rid of this card tray at the bottom because, of course, you're actually holding your cards in your hand. In general, then everything fit, but I had to do a little bit of rearranging, making things a little bit more vertical to fit my space. Doing this sort of virtual layout really helps me make a plan for what I want to create in my design. Next, I needed to prepare my imagery, and I use clip art. I have other videos that talk a lot about how to do image trace on clip art and the rules of using clip art in terms of licensing and copyright. I created gem tokens. I have a whole video on creating game tokens that you can watch, and these are for keeping track of who's winning and losing in the round. So this is what a cutout layer looks like. I've got my deck and my discard pile, my 3 levels of cards, my weather, my tokens, and my king card. And the layer underneath it, then I can turn them on both together and make sure everything lines up. And this is all the engraving that needs to be done for that layer. On my laser, red is a cut line, blue is engraving, and black is raster. And I'm making that a deep pocket raster by adjusting the manual settings. To do the other half of the board, I have to flip my design horizontally, and that way everything will line up with the board that's back to it. So that's the design for 4 of my 6 boards. I have a blank board for the bottom, and the top uses the Celtic border design I used inside. So here I am at Tech Shop, and the first thing I do is use scrap material to test the settings for the rastered pockets. I settled on 40% speed and 60% power to use for my design. This is cutting out one of the cutout layers, and I test then. I brought a sample card with me to make sure that the holes really were the size I thought they were. And here it is engraving. I have to say one of the great things about lasers is you can simulate the cuts using other tools, but there isn't anything that engraves as well as a laser cutter does. The screen that shows you the progress of the laser also tells you how long it's going to take. This is a 42-minute effort to engrave half of it, so you have to make sure you get it right. When you do a deep pocket raster like this, you get some smoke deposited, some resin there deposited on the wood, and I'll talk to you in a second about how to clean that off. But here's the 2 sets of boards. I'm happy with that. The tokens are cut out of 3/16 inch fluorescent acrylic. I use the smooth version of Fast Orange and a damp sponge to clean off that smoke wherever I find it. I always use as little water as possible, but using water raises the nap a little, so I sand, and in this case I used 330 grit extra fine. I'm staining the cutout levels with this Danish oil, a cherry color, and I also want to stain the places where I'm going to put the gems because the tokens will show up better if they're on a slightly darker area, so I outline that, and I know where to stain on that bottom layer. So here I am applying the stain to a cutout. You let it sit about 30 minutes and then you wipe it off. And I do have to put a little bit on the second layer in those gem holes. I apply bry wax over everything, including the stained part. And I put that on using a soft bristle brush. I just use a little nail brush. And that lets it get into all of the engraving. And you just cover all the pieces with that. And I wipe back the excess and I let that sit for about a day. I like to use 4x4 granite samples when I'm gluing things together. I use them as weights. I use these little sponges on sticks to clean up any glue that squirts out from the pressure. When it's all together, I buff all four sides using a drill brush. Make sure you get a drill brush that says it's for wax buffing, because otherwise it will damage the finish. My original plan was to put them together with hinges, but then I realized that using magnets would give me a lot more flexibility on different table sizes. Because I made this decision after leaving Tech Shop, I had to make the holes for the magnets using hand tools. And the holes are put in the middle layer and then they're covered by the two outer layers. I really like this idea, but the thing I would do differently next time is I'd use bigger, stronger magnets. These are the best magnets I could find to fit the current design, and they worked, but I'd like them to work better. So this is how the board looks with the cards in place. And here are the gems, the game tokens that I made, and just put them in their slots. I like how they turned out. And the board has a very nice feel to it and a very nice soft glow from that bry wax. I really like how this project turned out. I mean, I love video games, but sometimes nothing beats a good tabletop game too. I have lots of other projects. I love to make things especially for gaming and gamers. If you're interested, please subscribe to my channel.